Hey, what's up, guys? It's Lewis at that Convention Got Collectibles, and I'm back from FanX Salt Lake City. The convention is a little bit different than most in that it runs Thursday, Friday, Saturday, no Sunday. And I learned that last year. So this year I planned a little bit differently, and I got there Thursday, and I left Saturday. And I had actually finished all my autographs on Friday, so Saturday I didn't even need to go back, so I switched my flight for an earlier flight, which was very different than last year, where even with a VIP ticket, I was unable to get to all of my autographs. Now, I will say that I got lucky. James and Oliver Phelps, for those who don't know, the Weasley twins, they had a super long line, and I was in the back of it for a while, and that was a VIP ticket line. And at a certain point, the guys went off for lunch, and so they came and gave us these green tickets to come back later. And so later I came back, they weren't there, and I'm talking like maybe 3 hours later I came back, and they must have gone off for a break or something like that. But they basically took anybody who had the green tickets and put them right to the front of the line. So I ended up going from all the way in the back to about like 8th or 9th in line. And so I was able to get all their autographs, and they were the last ones I had. But without that green ticket, I probably would have been out of luck. And I really needed to get their autographs because my daughter was getting one for her best friend for her birthday. So it was important that I got it, but ended up getting it. So I was happy with that. So a couple things to talk about when it comes to FanX Salt Lake. And number one is that for those who have never traveled for conventions, something to keep in mind is the altitude. So I learned this last year, and for whatever reason, I kind of forgot until I got there. But I live in Georgia. The altitude in Utah, Salt Lake City, is different. And so what happens is the markers bleed. And so when I got to the hotel, I started testing my markers and prepping them, for the autographs, and they were just drenched pools of paint. And so I ended up having to not use them, which is really, really scary. And so I had a couple options. I was going to go to a store like I did last year, go like a Michael's or something like that, and buy some that have been acclimated to this altitude, and that would have been fine. But based on timing, I was like, ooh, I'm kind of running out of time. So I decided to just go ahead and go to the convention and see if the celebrities had some decent markers. And surprisingly, most of their markers were bleeding as well. So they kind of started to get less runny, I guess is a good way to say it, after a while. But at first, their markers were having the same issue, and I had to explain to them, it's like the altitude is different and it causes the markers to bleed. And they were like, oh, okay. I saw Kristen Ritter on Friday, and she said she wasn't feeling well, and I said it may have something to do with the altitude, and she was like, oh my goodness, that makes perfect sense. So anyway, point is, if you're ever going to travel to a convention in another state, somewhere where you're not familiar, definitely check altitude things, because what ends up, what you might be better off doing, which is what I'm going to do next year, is flying in and just immediately going to the art store or the craft store and buying new markers. And here's why. Yes, they all had their own markers. Yes, they worked. I didn't have any bleeding issues except for one. That was Carrie Ann Moss, who played Trinity in the Matrix. Her markers did bleed a little bit. They needed much, much more time to dry. And when they handed it back to me, it just bled right onto it went from a signature to just a big smear of paint. So I would strongly suggest, and this is what I'll do next year, is going to the store, getting my own markers, and prepping and priming them and all that, so I can have the colors that I want. Because while they all had their own markers, they didn't necessarily have the colors that I was looking for. I always used a teal blue, and most of them just had a different brand, and they just had regular, kind of darker blues and things like that. As you'll see in some of my items, the blues are a little different. Anyway, so that's number one. Number two, FanX oversells big time, especially in the VIP section. Most conventions do because they can make more money. But I wish if somebody was listening, sorry, my arm is getting tired holding this up. If somebody's listening out there from FanX, raise the price and sell less, because the idea of VIP is to be able to bypass some of these lines. And I was in lines where there was like 200 VIPs in it. I mean, like, that's not cutting down the line. Like, that's insanity. But anyway, it is what it is. I do have a tip, and I guess this would be number 2 after the markers, and that is, don't necessarily go first thing. Here's what I mean. I'll give you an example. David Matranga, who is a voice actor. He's known for a bunch of different characters. I know him from My Hero Academia. He plays Todoroki. I went to his line pretty early in the morning, and there was like 30 people in his line. A few hours later, after like things had calmed down, probably about 3:30, there was no one in his line. He was sitting there by himself. You could have walked up, had a nice conversation, and he wouldn't have been rushed or anything. There was nobody in his line. I would say the same thing for Gina Carano. You know, she's known for Star Wars, you know, her different projects. And first thing in the morning, the line was so, I mean, they had probably 200, 250, 300 VIPs in her line, plus another 300-400 people general admission. Well, at about 4:30, 5 o'clock p.m., no one. You could have walked right up to her and said hello. So unless you're strapped for time, like I'm always doing so many different autographs that I have to get, you know, to everybody. But I'm starting to realize, like, if I just waited and let's say started my day at like 2 o'clock, I probably would have gotten all the autographs done in, let's say, 2 hours, versus if I get there at 10, I'm there till like 4 o'clock anyway, because the lines are so much busier right when they open. So if you're able to, keep that in the back of your mind that you might be better off waiting till later to check it out. So I think, you know, overall it was a really good convention. They had a lot of great people. John Rhys Davies from Lord of the Rings, Gimli. Carrie-Anne Moss, Trinity from the Matrix. Kristen Ritter, who was Jessica Jones. They had the Daredevil from the Netflix series. They had Kingpin from the Netflix Daredevil series. Alexandra Daddario. They had Marty McFly. They had Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd. They had Tom Wilson, who played Biff. They had the principal, you know, you're a slacker, McFly. They had the cast of Scream. I mean, there was a lot of really good people. Charlie Hunnam came through. Ryan Hurst was there. Yeah, there was a good crowd. It was a good celebrity grouping. Cosplay was outstanding. There was a ton of it. I will say one of the areas that lacked for me personally was the merch. They had a lot of artists and, selling their art, which is great. And they had many authors there, autographing their books and things like that. But what they lacked was just merchandise, like, action figures and comics and things like that. Did they have some? Yeah, of course. But, if they had 250 total vendors, I'd say probably less than 50 or maybe 50 were actual like vendors of merchandise like that. Whereas they probably had like 100 to 150 of the artists. So, which, hey, each convention's a little different. I wish they had had a little bit more. I was looking for some items and couldn't find them anywhere. But anyway, other than that, it's a really good convention. It is really crowded. I do think that they oversell their tickets. I wish some of these companies would just raise their prices a little bit and then sell less. They'll make the same money. Limit it, I don't know how many VIPs they limit it to. It's got to be well over 500. And I would guess it's probably somewhere around more than 1,000, just based on what I saw. If I was in James and Oliver Phelps VIP line and there was like 150 people, and then I was in another line, there's 150, 200 people. So I would say there's over 1,000, and that's just way too many. Anyway, that's about it. So that's my suggestions and my recap of FanX, and I thought I'd share with you some of my autograph haul and then call it a day. So let me show you. We'll start off with my Lord of the Rings box set. Turn this around. In this box set, I was able to add Gimli to the one that's already signed by the 4 hobbits. And there's my picture with Gimli. Sorry about the lighting. And close enough. All right, I was able to get this piece signed by Kristen Ritter, who played Jane, or Jesse's girlfriend, on Breaking Bad. And this one. And as you can see, this is where I was talking about the different color blues, because there is my teal. Giancarlo used the different blue, and then Jane's blue was a different blue. Now, to me, it looks fine, but it is definitely noticeably different. So, moving on, I was able to add Katie Sackhoff to my 24 photo. That's already signed by Kiefer Sutherland. She played Dana Walsh, and so I think that looks pretty cool. This was a consignment that I took, and we were adding the Uncle Fester inscription. This was another consignment that I took, and we added Christopher Lloyd, we added Tom Wilson Biff, and Slacker Principal James Tolkien. I was able to get this display from The Mandalorian, signed by Katie Sackhoff, Bo-Katan, and inscribed, "This is the way." Now, this will be available on the website. I think it'll be $1.99. So if you're interested in that, check out the website the next few days. I was able to add James and Oliver Phelps, George and Fred Weasley to my Harry Potter display, which already has Professor Flitwick and Neville. This will be available on the site as well. So if you're interested in this, it's a good starter piece with some pretty hard to get names. Like Flitwick is not an easy one. So I was able to get my Funko 3-pack signed by James and Oliver Phelps, Fred and George. And I do have 2 of those. So one of those will be available on the website. I did get my Azog figure signed by Manu Bennett, who also wrote The Defiler. And we have a really cool picture of us in front of the very large Azog statue there, which I'll show you. David Matranga Pop, Shoto Todoroki. JS8, of course. I did get Yugu Aoyama from My Hero Academia. Joel McFarland, I believe. I also had him added to my display, which I don't have in front of me. Hold on. Here we go. This is my cast piece that is signed by a whole bunch of the cast. And I added Yuga, which is one of the last autographs I needed on here. I think I still need those 3. But pretty awesome piece. This is available on the website if anyone's interested. John Rhys Davies Gimli says, "Toss me. Don't tell the elf." Now this one did suffer a little damage, as you can see right here. And then the plastic started to come off because of that. Not come off, but it started to indent. So if you look here, if I push on this just slightly, you can see it's kind of come off or come away from this side. The left side is still intact, but the right side has come off a little bit. Great for display, just as it is. This one will be available on the website, and that'll be priced at like $139. Carrie-Anne Moss, Trinity from the Matrix. This figure's pretty awesome. And then I have a second one that I got at Pittsburgh Steel City Con a few weeks back. And that one is also signed. Moving on to my Back to the Future figure. And this one is signed by Biff. And it says, "Make like a tree and get out of here." Now, most of you know that I don't like to normally sign on the insides. I like to sign on the outside, but this had so much going on. I've seen them sign. They look terrible. So I decided to do it on the inside. I'll just have to display it like that. I can live with that. All right, this is one of the best pieces that I got signed this weekend. It is signed by Christopher Lloyd, Michael J. Fox, and Tom Wilson. And that is a display of the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Now, this one will be available on the website. This will be priced at about $7.99. Really awesome piece to have all 3 signatures. Very cool with the DeLorean. Again, beautiful signatures. A very nice, large Michael J. Fox signature, as you can see. I'll put my hand up next to it so you can kind of see the size. That is pretty large for a Michael J. Fox signature. And it is JSA authenticated. So you don't have to take my word for it. And there you go. This one I also got signed, and honestly, I love it, and I knew this was going to happen. So I don't know if I'm going to sell this one. If you're interested, send me an email, lewis@thatconventionguycollectibles.com. But I just love it. I don't know if I want to sell it. So, again, signed by Christopher Lloyd, a very nice Michael J. Fox, and a Tom Wilson. This awesome display. And it's JSA certified as well. But I think I may hold on to this one, unless somebody says, hey, I absolutely have to have it, because it is pretty awesome. All right, we got a couple of James and Oliver Phelps, or the Fred and George Weasley's Funko Pops from my collection. There's George. There's Fred. Now that's a duplicate, so one of these will be available on the website for purchase. Priced at $149. Same thing with this George. So you can get the pair. You can have them both. Here's another one from my collection. And then I was able to add Katie Sackhoff, who played Dana Walsh, and she wrote "Tick-tock, Mr. Bauer," and that's to go in my 24 display. That has Kiefer Sutherland, has Chloe, President Palmer, it has Cole, Julia. This is not for sale, this is a personal collection. The last few things, I got a Jesse Spano from Elizabeth Berkley. And I had her write, "I'm so excited. I'm so scared." If you remember that classic episode. I also got Biff. "What are you looking at, butthead?" This one's going in the private collection, my personal collection. And then I also have this one. "Hey, McFly." And this one will be available for purchase. Again, we'll make it simple, $149. I was able to add Kristen Ritter, who played Jane, to my Breaking Bad barrel. There's Gus Fring. I love that. That sits on my desk. And then the last item were these. Now these are Jackson Teller's Churchill leather motorcycle gloves, seen on screen. And so I brought these to Mr. Charlie Hunnam to see if he could authenticate them. And he said that they're the right pair. He said that they did show a lack of use, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't authentic. But he went ahead and signed them. He actually put them on just to make sure that they were the right size and things like that. And so technically they are worn by Jax Teller / Charlie Hunnam. And so after I talked to Charlie about these for a little while, he did sign this for me. And he wrote, "Lewis, those gloves are legit now," after he put them on and wore them. So that was pretty awesome of him. I appreciated that. Here's my picture with the Marvel from the Netflix series. We have Daredevil, Kingpin. That guy's awesome. Jessica Jones, and the attorney who was in pretty much all of the shows. She was awesome. And then the last thing I got was the signed Alexander Daddario from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Just thought that was a really cool signature, really cool piece. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre, who doesn't love one of those? So that is it, my friends. As you can see, a pretty large haul. Little bit of everything. I saw a lot of different people. The Back to the Future. Oh, that isn't everything. One more thing. All right, I said one more thing, but it's actually two more things. Well, technically three. I did add the Weasleys to my Harry Potter poster. And then I also got this. Across the Spider-Verse. And I got it signed over here. And it says, "Nah, I'm going to do my own thing." And that was signed by Shanique Moore, who played Miles Morales. So that's a pretty cool item. And that'll be available on the website as well. And purely because I just don't have the space for it. If I did, I would keep it because I think it's pretty awesome. And then the last thing, this one's going to be tough to sell as well. I'm going to need somebody to step up if they really want this one. And this was one of the pieces that I showed you before. This thing is pretty awesome. It is the DeLorean, signed by Christopher Lloyd, Michael J. Fox, and Tom Wilson. So Doc, Marty, and Biff, all signed. It's 20 by 30. It's a really, really awesome print of the DeLorean. Now, you could make this a cast piece, but to me, those three, it's all I needed. And I'm having a really hard time of thinking about selling that one because I just think it turned out so nice. And it's such a cool piece. If you're looking for something a little different than just a standard movie poster. So yeah. Now that was my entire haul. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching another video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. Remember, if you're going to do a convention out of state, check the altitude levels. You may want to buy markers there rather than bring your own. And what was the other thing? I can't even remember now. Oh, going later. Don't have to be the first person. You're going to be in a long line with a lot of other people. Possibly going later in the afternoon. You have much shorter lines, easier access to pretty much everybody. So, now, does that always work? No. There's going to be some guests that their lines are going to be there till 9 o'clock at night when they close the doors. Just as what it is. You take that gamble. But some of them, you can definitely wait a little longer. Alexander Daddario is one of them. She had a super long line at the beginning. She had a super long line the day before. And then I walked up to her like about 4:30, and I walked right up. So, just a little tip. Anyway, until next time, guys, I appreciate you watching. If you haven't already done so, like the channel, like the video. The next convention is Rhode Island Comic Con. Super big show in a very small state. It's a great show, great guests. Check them out already if you haven't. Rhode Island Comic Con. If you need something done, hit me up. This guy can take care of it for you. As you see, I like to do things a little differently, a little bit nicer than just your standard black Sharpie. And yeah, so if you need anything, I know there's going to be Carrie Ann Moss from the Matrix Trinity, Evangeline Lilly, who is the Wasp, as well as in the Hobbit series. There's all sorts of guests, so check them out, Rhode Island Comic Con, and if you need anything, send me an email, contact me, and let's get this thing going, guys. All right, till next time, appreciate you.